Hello friends, and welcome to the Architecture Enthusiast. Stalinist architecture, often called Socialist Classicism, represents a unique synthesis of classical grandeur, traditional design elements, and ideological symbolism. It emerged as a highly controlled architectural style that reflected the values and ambitions of the Soviet state during Stalin's leadership. This style sought to project power, stability, and unity, using monumental forms and decorative richness to communicate authority and collective progress. It aimed to reshape the urban environment and redefine the cultural identity of the Soviet people through an architectural language that was at once familiar and ambitious, drawing heavily from classical traditions while adapting them to a modern, socialist context. In answering the question, what is architecture? Stalinist architecture positions it as a tool for societal influence, an art form that transcends mere functionality to shape collective consciousness and convey ideological narratives. Architecture was not just about providing shelter or utility. It was a medium through which the state could instill a sense of order, pride, and aspiration. It was designed to inspire awe and reflect the ideals of a utopian socialist future, while grounding those ideals in a visual language that emphasized stability and permanence. Stalinist architecture, in this sense, sought to unify communities and elevate the collective spirit through spaces that embodied the grandeur of the state and its vision for progress. The forms of Stalinist architecture are characterized by their monumental scale, symmetry, and richly detailed ornamentation. These buildings often feature strong vertical lines, grand porticos, and classical elements such as columns, pilasters, and elaborate cornices. Towers and spires, capped with intricate finials or other decorative elements, are frequently employed to create a sense of verticality and prominence. The scale of these structures is imposing, with wide facades and towering forms that dominate their surroundings, reinforcing their symbolic role as icons of state power and collective identity. Functionally, the buildings were designed to accommodate civic, residential, or institutional purposes, often serving as theaters, government offices, universities, or large apartment complexes. Interiors were equally grand, with spacious halls, monumental staircases, and richly adorned ceilings that conveyed a sense of dignity and importance. The integration of decorative motifs, often inspired by local or national traditions, added layers of cultural resonance to the designs. Contextually, Stalinist architecture often sought to redefine urban landscapes. These buildings were typically positioned in prominent locations, such as central squares or along major boulevards, where they could serve as focal points and symbols of state authority. Urban planning during this era was heavily influenced by the desire for order and hierarchy, and Stalinist architecture reflected this through its strong axial layouts and emphasis on monumental vistas. While this approach created a sense of cohesion and visual harmony within the newly planned urban environments, it also introduced a sense of dissonance in areas where the existing architectural fabric was more subdued or vernacular. The stark contrast between Stalinist grandeur and the modest scale of traditional architecture could feel jarring, particularly in rural or historic settings. Inclusivity within Stalinist architecture was limited by its focus on representing state power and ideology rather than the everyday needs of individuals. While these buildings often included spaces intended for public use, such as assembly halls, cultural centers, and public squares, their monumental scale and ornate detailing could feel imposing or inaccessible to the average citizen. The architecture's grandeur, while inspiring to some, risked alienating those who found its scale and symbolism intimidating. The emphasis on collective identity often came at the expense of personal connection, as the buildings were designed more to reflect the ideals of the state than to respond to the nuanced needs of diverse communities. Culturally, Stalinist architecture resonated strongly as a symbol of progress and national pride. By drawing on classical motifs and integrating them into a modern context, this style created a sense of continuity with the past while projecting a vision of the future. The use of classical orders, symmetry, and proportion lent these buildings a timeless quality, while the incorporation of socialist symbols and local cultural elements grounded them in their historical and ideological context. This blend of tradition and modernity allowed Stalinist architecture to appeal to a broad audience, providing a visual narrative that celebrated both the heritage and aspirations of the Soviet people. However, its ideological underpinnings limited its universality, as its grandeur and rigidity sometimes failed to resonate with the more personal and human-scale concerns of daily life. Materiality played a significant role in Stalinist architecture's ability to convey durability and luxury. The style made extensive use of stone, brick, and reinforced concrete, often clad in marble, granite, or other decorative materials. These materials were chosen not only for their strength and longevity, but also for their ability to convey the opulence and permanence of the state's ambitions. Interiors often featured polished stone floors, intricate plasterwork, and ornamental metal details, further emphasizing the sense of refinement and grandeur. While the use of these materials created a lasting visual impact, it also raised questions about sustainability and resource efficiency. The labor-intensive nature of the construction processes and the emphasis on decorative richness often resulted in projects that were costly and difficult to maintain over time. Sustainability, as understood in contemporary terms, was not a priority during the Stalin era, but some elements of the architecture demonstrate an awareness of environmental considerations. The use of thick walls and durable materials provided insulation, while large windows and open courtyards allowed for natural light and ventilation. However, the sheer scale and ornamentation of the buildings often made them resource-intensive, both in terms of their initial construction and their long-term maintenance. This focus on monumentalism sometimes came at the expense of practicality and adaptability, limiting the architecture's ability to evolve with changing needs. The iconic presence of Stalinist architecture is undeniable. Its monumental scale, classical detailing, and bold forms ensure that these buildings command attention and evoke a sense of awe. They serve as powerful visual symbols of the era's ideological ambitions, creating landmarks that remain instantly recognizable. However, their grandeur and authoritarian aesthetic can alienate those who perceive them as overly rigid or disconnected from human-scale concerns. The emphasis on state power and collective identity, while successful in projecting a unified vision, sometimes came at the expense of personal connection and inclusivity. Ultimately, Stalinist architecture embodies a vision of architecture as a unifying and inspirational force, capable of shaping perceptions and fostering civic pride. It sought to create spaces that were both functional and symbolic, reflecting the ideals of progress, order, and cultural identity. While the style's monumental scale and ideological focus limited its accessibility and adaptability, its ambition and craftsmanship leave a lasting legacy as an expression of architecture's potential to communicate collective values and aspirations. Despite its challenges, Stalinist architecture remains a testament to the enduring power of architecture to inspire, elevate, and unify, offering valuable lessons about the relationship between design, culture, and society.